we've both been like always really inspired in biology, and we're always kind of trying to learn. So something we really like doing is when we're traveling somewhere, we like to visit the Botanical Garden and the Natural History Museum. Very often we go and we see something, and to us it feels like art in a way, but at the same time it feels like science. And we're both very much into this boundary where something isn't, clearly one thing or the other. So yeah, we knew that with our work we wanted to create that feeling.
A lot of our work is aquatically themed. We focused a lot on ocean ecology because this is, a vital part of the world's, general health. It's the health of the oceans. And when you dive in, waters that have recently been stirred up by a storm or by currents, you have this very sediment-rich water where everything kind of, appears, you have very poor visibility, everything's quite uniform and grey. But then when you start to peer closely, if you go very close to, the life you find there, suddenly you see actually it's still full of color and life, and how all this sediment is actually, a very rich nutrition for all that lives there. So what we wanted to do with this project was to try and give a little sort of experience of that diversity that you find when you sort of peer closely underwater. And
also because, we think a lot about kind of the transition of life in the planet and the ways that we have of reconstructing what happened in the past. And very often that's through sediment. And we can see like what potentially lived in a place, and we can kind of create a picture of, what could have happened here. And something that we're often very inspired by is like, mud can look like nothing, it can look like there's no life, but there's so much to learn from it, because of the minerals in it, and that can tell you something about all the life that is interacting with it. In our work, we very often combine features from creatures that, first of all, like they don't exist, but secondly, in the data set, we just combine creatures that don't belong together in a real ecosystem. And, there's very much a parallel between that, like what we're doing digitally, and what happens in the Botanical Garden. AI augments my creative process by allowing me to distill and recombine textures. And that's something that would otherwise take me months to draw by hand. Well, it's definitely a tool for us. We're not very much into the idea that AI, should be treated as an entity. And we find that like a little bit problematic in a way if we give AI too much agency, because that ultimately could mean that we avoid responsibility over the models that we train. And we still think that it's really important to acknowledge that we decide what goes in the data sets. Knowing that there's a boundary to our imagination doesn't have to feel limiting. On the contrary, it can help motivate us to expand that boundary further and to seek out colors and things we haven't yet seen, and perhaps enrich our imagination as a result.